My name is Jaime Coy, and the title of my research proposal is Smartphones and Relationships, a study of the effects of smartphone use on relationships. The reason I chose this study was because this is a particular issue that has hit home for us. We're a family that likes technology. We own iPads, iPhones, Nobbies, you name it, we have it. Over the past several months, I've recognized that there is a significant problem with us facing our phones instead of facing each other, and in trying to figure out what kind of proposal I wanted to do, I wanted to be something that obviously, one, I was going to learn from, but two, how is it going to affect me in my personal life? So this is why I chose this one. I chose to do this as a quantitative study to examine the negative effects that smartphones have on relationships, particularly dating and marriage relationships. The participants that I chose to be were going to be couples who are dating or married for a minimum of 1 year, but not more than 5 years. The descriptive and inferential statistics that I was going to use to analyze the data was going to be a 2x2 ANOVA, and this was going to help me to determine if smartphones negatively affect relationships. Hopefully, what the findings from this study will do will aid counselors in understanding the impact that smartphone usage has on short-term and long-term relationships. I found lots of research. I found lots of articles. I found not just primary sources but also secondary sources in regard to the increase of technology over the years. But what I also found is that there's very little research on its effects on people, just because it's still relatively new. One of the leading authors that I found, Sherry Turkle, wrote a book a long time ago about the benefits of technology, and her research has shifted over the past 20-something years to where she's starting to see and starting to recognize how smartphones are taking the place of one-on-one relationships. And from listening to a TED talk of hers and reading a couple of books of hers, my research was going to be focused on how smartphones were negatively affecting relationships. Social media sites on smartphones are very accessible. Texting is very accessible. Email is very accessible, and just the smartphone in general. Just for example, like Apple's iPhone and Samsung's Galaxy phone, they just connect us to a world. They just connect us to other people, and it makes relationships accessible. But they also, what I found, it seems, is they're keeping relationships at a distance. The methods that I was proposing, as far as participants were concerned, the participants were going to be a random sample of individuals who have been in a relationship for a minimum of 1 year, but not more than 5. The relationships for the purposes of this study were people who were participants who are either dating or married. A random sample was going to be solicited via email, and social media from the top 50 employers in Lubbock, Texas, and I found a list of the top 50 through the City of Lubbock's GIS mapping website. Participants were going to be able to ask the investigator questions regarding the study, and they were going to be rewarded with a $25 Amazon gift card for their participation. Materials was going to use a pretest post-test Likert scale. The Likert scale was going to have 5 factors, each factor containing 10 scaled questions using a 7-point format. The 7-point format was agree, moderately agree, slightly agree, neither agree nor disagree, slight disagreement, moderate disagreement, and disagree. The assessment was going to take approximately 30 minutes to 1 hour. I set the Chromebax alpha level based off a pilot study at 0.85, which left an error variance of 0.28. Using the Chromebax alpha in my make-believe pilot study revealed inconsistencies in the questions being asked, so I was really wanting to hone down the assessment so I could measure what the study is intended to measure. As far as procedures are concerned, a random sample, like I said, was going to be solicited via mail, email, and social media from the top 50 employers in Lubbock. They were going to be rewarded with a $25 Amazon gift card for their participation. Informed consent was going to be given orally and also in written form. It was going to be a pre-test, post-test. The pre-test, post-test was going to be separated with at least 30-day time frame. And in that time frame, I was going to have the participants agree to purchase an app called TimeLock. And what this does is that this frees the phone down. This gives a set limit on the phone for a particular day, and this would allow me to gain some qualitative data that would, or some qualitative information that would help in the quantitative part in the pretest and post-test Likert scales. The pre-test, post-test was going to be available in online format. Like I said, there was going to be a 30-day time frame between the pre-test and post-test. At the end of the 30 days, the post-test will be administered and TimeLock will be removed from the participants' phones. As far as descriptives and inferential statistics, descriptives are going to include the mean, median, and mode, as well as Pearson correlations to determine if smartphone usage has a negative effect on relationships. Other descriptives included sample and sample means. The analysis for the study was going to be a two-way analysis of variance test. Wanted to measure the mean differences between groups and also within groups to see if there was any variance through the mean, standard area, and F ratio. And I set the ANOVA alpha level for a type 1 error at 0.05. The groups that were going to be measured would be the couples who are dating and the couples who are married. Dating couples and married couples will be measured at pre-test and post-test. The purpose of this study was, as a result of the limited amount of research on the negative effect of smartphones on relationships, I believe that counselors need empirical data to provide effective interventions. Since it's relatively new, since this is a relatively somewhat new area, at least hopefully this study would set a baseline to create other studies. I believe that you could go a number of ways with smartphones. Smartphones on how they affect attachment, smartphones and how they affect development, smartphones and how they affect the plasticity of the brain, and what how we are possibly rewiring our brain to be comfortable in quick, accessible, and distant relationships through smartphone use. The research topic obviously was smartphones and how they affected relationships. The study was driven by the following question: through the use of smartphones and tablets, how does texting and social media use negatively affect the quality of dating and or marriage relationship? The following hypotheses this hypothesis was going to be examined, and it was stated in the null. And those hypotheses were: 1, Likert scale scores will not show a negative effect that smartphones have on relationships, and 2, Likert scales will not show a significant difference between pre- and post-test scores. I reported 3 limitations. One of the limitations is the time in between pre-test and post-test. Wright in our textbooks suggested that there's a 2-week interval between pre-test and post-test, which is more common. 30 days is a significant amount of time for the participants to be limited in their smartphone use to 1 hour per day. Self-reporting was another limitation of this study. Self-perception, self-preservation, and consistency seeking are motives that could arise when a participant is trying to give a false representation of the phenomena being studied. So if they're reporting on the pre-test and post-test Likert scales that it's not as bad as the questions are asking, they might be putting off the perception that they don't have a problem with it, when in reality that they really do have a problem with the cell phone use. I think the significance, the impact of smartphones on the quality of relationships remain to be seen. But it's quite possible that the smartphone use is deteriorating human-to-human contact. Smartphone and tablet use to access social media sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram seem to be slowly replacing the need for basic human-to-human relationships. The effects of these devices are unknown concerning feelings of connectedness and relational satisfaction, and it seems that the latest generation, which I found in my research to be Generation Z, prefers to talk online rather than in person. So I think there's a need for the study. I hope this study comes to fruition one of these days. I don't intend on using this study just to get a passing grade. I really hope to use this study maybe one day in the future and to see what the results may be. And that's my research proposal.